What's up guys, welcome to Buzz Tech. Today I'm going to be installing the Arctic Accelero Hybrid 3140 liquid cooler onto my GTX 1080 Founders Edition from Asus. This is the generic version of the Arctic cooler, which means you can install this on pretty much any Nvidia or AMD graphics card. This is mainly made for reducing your temperature and noise levels and for better overclocking and overall lifespan of your GPU. It comes with a 140mm static pressure fan and 80mm fan for you actively cooling your VRM and other components, and a back-mounted heatsink for cooling your RAM chips. First, for removing the actual existing heatsink, you have to remove tiny screws from the back plate in order to free the back plate first. And be sure not to lose those screws because those screws are really tiny, and do not screw them down all the way really hard because they can snap and then you'll have a bad day. Then use a 4.5mm wrench with a socket and remove the nut type of thing that those small little screws screw into in order to free the heatsink completely. This is a very lengthy process, but yeah, you guys have to deal with it if you have a 10 series graphics card. Then you have to remove 3 screws from the back of the card where you plug your display ports into. Then gently pry the heatsink off. It might take some force, but as it gradually comes off, do not pull it all the way out because there are 2 connectors for the LED and for the fan that have to be removed first before you take the heatsink completely off. Then remove the thermal pads from the RAM chips and place them back on the heatsink so you don't lose them or get them dirty. Then use isopropyl alcohol or something similar and clean the old thermal paste off the GPU. In my case, I just used a dry tissue paper and it came off relatively easily without any problem. Then place a dab of thermal paste onto the cooler itself, or even you can place it onto the GPU. And remember, you shouldn't put too much of this thing because too much is harmful and too little is harmful as well. So place a good amount of thermal paste because this thing will spread anyways, so yeah, you shouldn't have a very thick layer of thermal paste between the cooler and the GPU itself. Then remove the protective film from the back of this heatsink that mounts on the back of your card. As you can see, there are actually 4 to 5 thermal pads, but I dropped 2 of those and I didn't notice that. Unfortunately, I had to remove the whole pump assembly in order to put those thermal pads back. Yeah, so that's a total of 4 thermal pads, 2 same on each side, 1 short one from front and a square one in the middle. This is to cool your actual RAM chips. So then you have to place 4 screws with springs with washers as well. And as you can see, I'm pretty much struggling with the cooler and the heatsink, trying to attach it. It isn't a easy process, so you guys have to suffer a bit with that. And you guys have to make sure that you're tightening it down in a cross pattern and applying even pressure so the actual thermal paste can spread evenly around the GPU for effective cooling. Otherwise, you might also break a few components maybe, or screws or some multiple things, and that will lead to a bad day. So be sure that you're screwing it in a cross pattern to apply even pressure to all the 4 corners. After you've successfully done that, then you have successfully installed your heatsink and the water cooler onto your GPU. For the next step, you guys have to clean off the power delivery area, which I'm going to do in a minute. As you can see, those small little power delivery chips right below the actual pump unit. With the generic version you get tiny heat sinks with thermal glue in order to place it onto those power delivery and VRM components in order to actively cool them with the 80mm fan that Arctic has also supplied in the kit. So yeah, if you for example have bought the GTX 980 version of this cooler, then it is one big heat sink that you just have to remove you have to remove those plastic films in order just to place it on and screw it down. But in my case this was a bit too complicated, and yeah, for generic versions it's always like this. As you can see, I'm placing a dab of thermal glue on each chip and then placing a heatsink on each one of them. You have to leave this for 1 hour to cure in order for it to become solid and not fall everywhere. As you can see, I'm struggling a little bit. After 1 hour it's completely dried, I believe, or even dried enough that you can place the fan over, because don't place the fan right now because yeah, those things might fall off. And yeah, so you just have to screw in the fan after the thermal glue has dried enough and stiff enough that yeah, so you just have to place the fan and then connect it onto or into the fan connector of the old existing fan, that blower fan. It goes right there, and then from there there's a daisy chain that you can connect to the actual big 140mm fan. And yeah, and then you're pretty much done. Your idle temperatures should be in 30-degree range, and once you're there means you're golden. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed my video, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to place your screws back onto your stock heatsink, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.